So we just need to say, first of all, a massive welcome to Charlotte Berridge. Charlotte's from Smart Saddles and is the MD of Smart Saddles, where she's worked since 2010. Smart Saddles was founded in 2006, so 2006, and is Derbyshire based. I'm sure Charlotte will give us some more information as we progress through this evening's webinar. Just a little bit on the tech front, as normal, before we start. We're recording the webinar, so you'll be able to come back and watch it as many times as you like. If you'd like to go back to certain parts, then please do. And if you want to ask a question, please just type it into the chat. Carolina, hello. She said chat's locked. Oh, not sure why we've locked the chat. We didn't actually mean to, so apologies for that, and welcome from Spain. So yes, please put your questions in the Q&A, and if you want to change the size of the slides and Charlotte's picture on the screen, please just move the little grey bar left and right, so you can make the slides bigger, Charlotte smaller, or Charlotte bigger, slide smaller. And one last thing is, at the end of the webinar there'll be a short survey, and we'd be really grateful if you could just fill that in for us. It literally takes a few seconds, and it's great because it gives us the opportunity to see what else you guys would like us to put together in terms of webinars. So I think that is it in terms of hellos. And hello, Marita from Dumfries. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. So yeah, thank you guys. We're going to hand over to Charlotte, and welcome. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to listening to this. Really, really intrigued.
Yeah, see you shortly.
Okay, so yeah, first off, just wanted to say hello to everyone. As Heidi and Thea said, I'm Charlotte Berridge, the Managing Director of UK-based award-winning saddle company Smart Saddles. So big welcome to the presentation, and thank Horse Tribe for inviting me. I'll look forward to answering any questions at the end. So just move on to what's actually the second slide. Sorry, third slide. In this presentation, I want to discuss the evolution of flexible saddle design, the benefits for horse and rider, the scientific research behind it, and to also debunk some common myths associated with treeless saddles. So if you could just move on to the fourth slide. So to begin, let's look at how saddles have evolved through the ages and where flexible saddle systems fit into the bigger picture. As we know, the use of the horse has changed through the centuries. What was once a military servant is now a leisure animal and pet. However, although the use of the horse has changed over time, there's been remarkably little change to saddle design beyond cosmetic detail. Traditional trees were originally made for the purpose of holding the saddle securely in place. They were essentially just two pieces of wood either side of the spine, held together by arches at the front and rear. Stirrups were added in around 300 AD, which helped with stability in combat. Later, around 700 AD, saddles had developed to have large pommels and cantles to withstand the weight and forces of a knight in full armour. I just want to go to the next slide, sorry, and the next. Although the designs have been refined since then, the core tree is little changed. So, with history suggesting that saddles evolved in this manner of rider security opposed to horse comfort or performance, why has there been minimal change to saddle design, and why is there a reluctance to accept the idea of a flexible treeless saddle? So on the next slide, you can see a traditional saddle tree. You can see it's designed with a reinforced front arch to provide clearance over the wither and lateral rails either side of the spine. The stirrup bars are attached to the front arch, as this is the strongest part. Base panels are then attached to provide padding for the horse and to help bridge the spinous processes and ligaments. The saddle panels should be supported by the longissimus dorsi either side of the spine. Although saddle trees can complement the shape of a static horse very nicely, limitations can occur when the horse moves. This is because the horse's back movement has 6 degrees of freedom, and this is translated as accelerations through the saddle to the rider. There's linear movement, which can be thought of simply as a push and a pull in a direction. That's either left and right, backwards and forwards, up and down. There's also rotational movement, which can be thought of as a twisting around an axis or center point. There's yaw, roll, and pitch. There are common movement patterns within the gaits. For example, walk has more yaw, trot has more roll, and canter has more pitch. And if you look at the diagram, you can see the difference between the linear movement, rotational movement, roll, yaw, and pitch. Then moving on to the next slide, there's a video to show how a rigid tree can only move in one piece as the horse moves. So if it's displaced by the horse, the whole tree has to react. So you can see the tree moving across the horse's back. It's a little slow motion there. Then in the next slide, where there's also a video, here you can see an ill-fitting saddle, which illustrates the potential pitfalls of a rigid design even more clearly. Of course, as owners, riders, and saddle fitters, everyone's doing the best they can to ensure that saddles fit as best as possible. But the reality is that ill-fitting saddles are a daily part of ridden life for many horses. On the next slide, you can see that the horse's scapula can also cause saddles to slip backwards, meaning that the rest of the rigid frame has to follow. This sort of issue is commonly addressed by over-tightening of the girth or using a breast girth to prevent the saddle slipping back. If the primary cause for the slipping is an ill-fitting saddle, then forcing the saddle into place with the breast girth creates new issues for the horse. You can see there where the scapula lays in relation to the tree points of the saddle. In the next slide, there's another video, and this demonstrates just how much the horse's scapulae moves during the walk. You can see how this could have an impact on the saddle and why, often with horses with big shoulders, keeping the saddle stable can be quite tricky. So I think this is a little Dale's horse with huge shoulders. Okay, so next slide, we can see the difficulties that arise. So the difficulty of fitting and maintaining fit is that when the horse moves, everything changes. So as the horse changes from its back being an extension to its back being an flexion, the whole structure changes, and what the tree actually has to do, or what the saddle has to accommodate, changes. To help accommodate this, traditional saddle makers have tried to make trees more flexible. So the selection of different designs that will try to address this and find some sort of compromise between a rigid frame and a flexible structure. There's many changes in shape that affect saddle fit: weight, posture, muscular development. We know that horses' weight fluctuates constantly, with deposits over the top line being first affected. This therefore has a direct and fast-acting effect on your saddle fit. Horses' posture also changes over the hours, days, and weeks, and can affect how they are carrying the saddle. For instance, if they are alert and standing uphill with the hind legs underneath them, they will carry the saddle differently to if they are calm and parked out. Injuries can affect a horse's posture as the horse compensates accordingly. Therefore, although postural changes can be very short-term, they can also be sustained over longer periods, and a saddle that doesn't fit throughout this time can lead to further damage, injury, or compensatory adaptations. Lastly, a young green horse at the start of its career will have different muscular development and muscle tone to a horse that has been under saddle for a longer time, and therefore the saddle needs to fit accordingly. A tree that is the right shape at the start of the horse's career may not be the right shape further on as the musculature changes. Moreover, we want our horses to change shape, and therefore we need our saddle to accommodate and encourage this in line with the scales of training and positive development. Other issues that can arise can be that horse requirements differ from rider requirements, so they may not be the same. Whilst a rider wants to be balanced and coordinated, so require a narrow waist in the saddle seat, and this leads to saddles being designed with a narrow profile in the waist of the base panels. The horse, in the meantime, requires a wide gullet to avoid pressure on the spine and the sensitive support structures of the back. He needs room to bend and flex the thorax. The result is that there's a lack of support and protection in a narrow panel, which does not spread the load evenly and often leaves the bars of the rigid tree exposed, with the risk of injury to the horse's back. And you can see in the last photo on that frame, you can actually see the rails of the saddle exposed just underneath the leather. So there's many signs of saddle-related damage. There's a few photos here to illustrate that. Many signs of saddle-related damage are easily recognizable, though too often they are normalized due to the high numbers of horses in work that have some degree of saddle-related damage. From white patches caused by pressure, heat, and/or friction, to hair loss caused by excess saddle movement, causing damage to the follicle, myofascial tears from overgirthing, or muscle atrophy from excess pressure or a tree that is too tight. There are many symptoms to be aware of. And many of these look just like common images you see on any livery yard. Although we all endeavour to do our best for our horses, sometimes problems arise, and it's our responsibility to try and identify and address them. As well as the physical signs of poor saddle fit, look out for behavioural signs that could also indicate poor saddle fit, such as ears back when tacking up, horse becoming fidgety or attempting to bite, if they turn their head to the girth when you're putting the saddle on, or if they move to the back of the stable when they see you approaching with tack even. Not wanting to stand at the mounting block's a big one, and these are all symptoms or could be symptoms of poor saddle fit. Research in the field shows that horses who pull faces when being tacked up often do so in anticipation of pain being caused either by the saddle or lameness. In these images, on the left, you can see the horse has his eyelids closed and the ears are back behind the vertical during his noseband being done up. The horse on the right is tossing its head during saddle placement and his ears are back. So these could be quite subtle signs in some respects, but they're always there. So it's important to always pay attention to your horse, their posture, musculature, how they're moving and their behaviour. Knowing what is normal for them means that you can address any concerns sooner rather than later, working with your vet, saddle fitter, farrier, and other paraprofessionals. But don't forget that often these warning signs are normalised, so be really honest with yourself when you think about how your horse behaves when you tack them up. If they've always been grumpy or fidgety to tack up, it might be worth instructing the help of one of your team of professionals to see if you can get to the root cause of the behaviour. So what do you think when you think of a treeless saddle? Not all treeless saddles are created equal, and the absence of a tree does not automatically make the saddle more horse-friendly. Attention must still be paid to the design and how the saddle will engage with the horse's back and how the horse will be protected from the forces from the rider. Some treeless designs are nothing more than a pad with stitched-on girthing and stirrup attachments. Not only do these create safety concerns, but they can also create peak pressures as they do not bridge the spine and there is nothing to help distribute the weight. Other designs are not fully flexible, but contain rigid parts, such as a pommel arch or cantle. Having isolated rigid components on an otherwise flexible structure can create pressure points. For the rider, these designs can offer less support and stability, particularly bulky designs that lack independent base panels, which are necessary for lateral stability. Anything that you strap to a horse's back has the potential to cause damage. It's up to us to ensure that the saddle is of a good fit and design. Always think about how the saddle that you're using is working and what effect it may have on your horse. So there's some examples of some very basic treeless saddle designs. Although I cannot speak for the testing of all so-called treeless saddles, I am able to discuss the merits of the patented, fully flexible, smart saddle range. After years of experiencing saddle-related problems and experimenting with a wide range of expensive saddles with different flocking on many horses, Dr. Anne Bondy found that although some of the problems could be alleviated, they were not solved. After trialling other treeless designs and seeing and feeling the improvements in the horses, Anne founded Smart Saddles in 2006 and has since devoted herself to developing a flexible saddle system that's in the best interests of both horse and rider. Following on from her background as a highly successful rider and trainer in both dressage and eventing, as well as a senior examiner of the British Horse Society, Anne has been awarded a doctorate for her novel research of horse, saddle and rider interaction. Much research was carried out on the Smart Saddle range during the course of Anne's thesis. Hence, we understand much better the interaction and performance benefits of this unique saddle range. Flexible saddles have changed significantly over the course of the past 16 years. Beginning with a single gulletless design, flexible saddles are now available in a wide range of styles and sizes suitable for all horses and riders. Whilst the original gulletless design provided many benefits, there were limitations. Without base panels to provide lift and support, many horses required a significant amount of supplementary padding to ensure correct fit and balance, particularly those suffering from muscle atrophy. For the rider, the lack of an A-frame or narrow twist meant that they could be left feeling unsupported or as though the saddle was too wide. The flat base also reduced the lateral stability, so the reality was that this design was only recommended for flat work. The next step up in design added two relatively small and flat lateral base panels to give a bit more structure to the saddle, provide slightly easier fitting to the horse and also for the rider. Although there were clear improvements and many horses and riders could perform very comfortably in this design of saddle, many riders still wanted a more user-friendly system, more traditional styling and more precision for the rider. This led to the launch of the first smart saddle designs in 2010, which had a more conventional base panel, providing greater lift over the back and wither, with a larger surface area to dissipate pressure and a seat with a true A-frame to help the rider. Overall, these designs were much more supportive and easier to fit, but just as with the iPhone, there were still more improvements to come. Since 2010, the patented smart designs have undergone huge changes to not only improve the fit to the horse, make them easier to fit for the user, improve the balance, increase the close contact for the rider and give a more precision feel, but to also offer a wider range of base panels and seat shapes to target different horse back shapes and rider preferences. In 2021, smart saddles became the first saddle design to win a coveted Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation in recognition of the true innovation and success of the designs. There are many benefits to a fully flexible saddle system. They range from benefits for the horse, the rider, the saddle fitter, the wallet, and also for safety. For the horse, flexible saddles can be compared to a human running shoe. They flex with the movement, but are fitted with a close, even contact and are designed to engage with the back. As there are no rigid structures to protect the horse from, the fit can be much closer. The horse has greater freedom through the stride cycle, and there's no clothes peg effect like there can be with a treed saddle. With no tree points to dig in, horses often respond better to flexible saddles, particularly young horses when they're getting started. As fully flexible saddles flex around the back shape once rider weight is applied, they don't bridge, so provide more even contact along the base panels. This is also why flexible saddles are always fitted when the rider is on board and the horse is walking forwards, as the fit will change when the horse is in motion. So the fit to the horse and the balance for the rider is always addressed once the rider's on board and the horse is moving forwards. When the hind leg steps under, engages the back and lifts and flexes it, it has the effect of carrying the saddle. And this is really what we're looking at. So you need to be seeing the saddle in all three gaits on both reins to really get a true picture of what's going on and how the saddle's performing. So there's also many benefits for the rider. That includes improved horse rider saddle synchrony, reduced concussion, the fact that you can adjust the balance, so the saddle can be fitted to the horse and then adjusted the balance for the rider without affecting the fit to the horse, which means that you can get the rider exactly where they need to be. The materials are very forgiving, so they're very comfortable saddles. There's a flexible cantle, so you can have quite a deep seat without it feeling obtrusive. Again, you can tailor the support, so the knee blocks are all interchangeable. You can choose different shapes, sizes, and they're on a Velcro system, so you can position them exactly where you need to. This may change between horses, between disciplines, or even as your horse changes or improves under saddle. So as you work up the grades, how you ride your horse and where the support needs to be may change. They're very lightweight compared to most traditional saddles. Obviously, there's nothing, there's no steel or wooden frame inside them. It's just layers of high density felts and foams. So you've got the support there for the horse and the rider, but without losing that flexibility. We find that a lot of owners and riders become very confident in when to adjust the fit, what's right for them and their horse, when to seek help and when they can make just interim little changes to keep them on track. Improve training outcomes. So if your horse is more comfortable, they're easier to train and you get better results. There's also a safety aspect, which we'll come on to later. And although some people consider them quite an investment, they are cost effective in the long run. Again, we'll come on to that later. So beyond the benefits for the horse and the rider, they're also a useful tool for the saddle fitter. You know that you're always going to have a suitable saddle in your van because the saddle will flex around whatever back shape you go out to on the day. So it's a case of determining what the right size and style saddle is and then fitting it accordingly. Flexible saddles are more forgiving in between refits. So if the horse changes shape, which it's likely to between visits, a flexible saddle will better accommodate this and potential damage is reduced because the saddle is still going to flex with the back. The adjustments at refits are very quick and simple. It's a case often of just changing shims or dorsal pads. And overall, it's a very straightforward fitting system. It doesn't require sort of complex changing of head plates or selecting from a myriad of different parts. As a saddle fitter and also as a rider, the benefit of adjusting the rider balance, as I mentioned earlier, is also great. You can see here an example of utilising a pair of front shims, which literally just slot in between the horse's back and the saddle to change the whole balance for the rider. So they've changed there from being in a bit of an anterior tilt into more of a pelvic neutral position. The rider can ensure that the saddle not only fits the horse optimally, but also themselves. Lots of riders experience back pain, which can often be attributed to suboptimal saddle balance. So correcting this can immediately alleviate back pain for the rider. We've had a lot of riders that have previously been thinking they're coming to the end of their riding career, but actually, if you can get them into a saddle that's properly balanced and tailored to support them, they don't feel the pain anymore. And external pads are used where necessary, depending on the individual horse. Some horses may always require pads, whereas other horses may sometimes, but not always. And there's plenty of horses that don't require any. Just see some photos on the next slide. Each horse, saddle and rider combination is completely individual, and so they must be assessed accordingly. It's not a case of one size fits all. It's a case of establishing the right size for the rider, the right base panel for the horse, which is effectively the interface, and then adjusting the balance and fit from there. There's also cost benefits that I mentioned earlier. So the saddles can be continually refitted. There's no need to fear the expense of a new saddle each time your horse changes shape. Saddles can be fitted to more than one horse. That's whether you're a multi-horse owner or you go on to buy a different horse in the future. There's every chance that your flexible saddle will be able to be fitted to that new horse. Adjustments to fit are quick, simple and affordable. Shims can start from £25 a pair, so are very cost effective. Healthy backs require less ongoing maintenance, so a well-fitting saddle leads to less issues and a reduced cost of alternative therapies, and ongoing routine maintenance is reduced as the flexible saddles don't require reflocking in the traditional sense. Safety benefits, so it's an additional benefit of a flexible saddle design, a fully rigid-free flexible saddle design, which leads it to being fully deformable. So you can see in these photos of rotational falls that often the saddle can come into play and can actually increase injury to horse and rider. But with a fully deformable saddle, the risk of that happening is far less. The photo in the bottom right-hand corner, that was a horse in a fully flexible saddle, in a true rotational, and the horse and rider came away unscathed, and the saddle was actually not damaged either, because it's just been able to flex and accommodate the fall, essentially. So how might a fully flexible saddle system address common saddle fit issues? As you can see in this series of images, there's a big change in this particular horse. So a fully flexible saddle can expand or contract to however wide or narrow the horse, accommodating healthy back muscle development. As you can see here, the horse, when changed to a fully flexible saddle, has filled in across its top line and now stands with much better posture. These are all indicators of healthier function. These photos were taken at the initial fitting of the flexible saddle and then at the first refit 3 months later. As the horse's shape had changed, the saddle needed adjusting accordingly in order to continue getting the best results possible. So although the saddle has created great results in a short space of time, it's obviously important to keep the ongoing refits and continue that improvement. You can see in the next slide a couple of videos to show just how flexible the saddles are. They can expand or contract to however wide or narrow the horse. Hopefully you never get a horse that narrow, but we get plenty of tabletop ponies that are that wide. And then also looking at how a flexible saddle can address the issue of excess saddle movement across the back. So looking at the next set of photos, you can see horse and riders doing mounted games, which is so lots of twisting and turning, but it demonstrates the flexibility of the saddle design, enables the saddle to remain stable as it flexes at different points to avoid being displaced by the horse's movement. So the saddle panels engage with the long back muscles either side of the spine independently and flex with the scapula to accommodate the movement of the horse. It's the ability of the saddle to flex independently throughout that gives it its stability, as counterintuitive as that sounds. So essentially the saddle just accommodates and effectively absorbs the movement and stays stable on top of the horse rather than being displaced and forced to shift across the horse. So over tightening of the girth is an issue that discussed earlier. As we know, a correctly fitted and balanced flexible saddle remains stable on the back, so the rider shouldn't feel the need to over tighten the girth in the first place. But for best results, we recommend girthing up as close to the bottom of the saddle flap as possible, avoiding long lengths of girth strap exposed against the horse's side and to keep the buckles away from the elbows and rib joints. We also promote a horse-friendly girthing technique, whatever style of saddle you use. And you can see here on the video and demonstrating a horse-friendly girthing technique, if there's any sound on that. So moving on to a bit of the science behind the saddles. Smart Saddles have carried out a lot of in-house testing of the Smart Saddle range. We've used TechScan, Conform Map pressure mapping system, biomechanical analysis, and other software such as XSense and EMAS. And we've had some really interesting results. So firstly, looking at asynchrony, it's the interaction of the three elements of the horse, the saddle, and the rider. The three elements of the horse, saddle, and rider interaction form a complex coupled system. Each individual element influences the others, but also moves independently through its own individual freedoms of movement. The saddle is an important coupling. It translates movement from the horse to the rider and vice versa. And poor saddle fit to either the horse or the rider will disturb that crucial communication. The function of the saddle is to provide the interface between the horse and the rider. It should provide stability for the rider and reduce the peak forces exerted on the back by the rider to the horse. But does it? So if you have a look at the video on the next slide, it shows a clear example of asynchrony of the three elements. So you can see that the rider, the horse, and the saddle are all marked up. And you can see how each one moves. So the rider's pelvis remains in alignment with the saddle as it moves, not the horse's back, with clear loss of its synchrony. The rider's compensatory movements and use of levers help to maintain their balance. So we've done a lot of looking at the synchrony of horse, saddle, and rider with a conventional treed saddle and also with flexible saddles. And if we have a look at the next slide, you'll see there's the how much more linear the alignment and synchrony of the flexible saddle is. So it's also consideration that the health and well-being of the rider, particularly the rider's back, can be compromised by asymmetry. So again, one of the benefits to the rider, if you're able to stay in better synchrony with your horse, it can be a much more comfortable experience. The next slide also demonstrates some of the patterns. So this is from a system called EMAS. So this is a graph representation of the vertical misalignment of horse, saddle and rider over the course of 3 strides. And you can see there's a significant improvement in alignment of horse, saddle and rider interaction with a flexible saddle on the right-hand side compared to the traditional saddle on the left-hand side. Other areas that we've looked at include horse's neck posture. So you can see significant change where it's being carried in a longer and lower frame in the smart saddle. When the horse has a high head and neck position, the stride length and extension of the back are significantly reduced. Therefore, the neck can be a useful measure of back activity as well as stride length. These images show a tense hollow outline with a more natural engaged outline using mechanical and biomechanical analysis, which is where you can see that the horse has been marked up and a retrospective mark has been put on for the neck position. We also know that research shows that a healthy back increases in size during work. Therefore, it's important that any saddle used can accommodate and promote healthy back muscle development. In these photos, you can see 2 examples of different horses showing a big improvement in back musculature over a relatively short period of time. So 2.5 to 3 months between the photos in both of these examples. So you can see much better back muscle development. Also, the rubs and marks on the horse on the right-hand side have disappeared. So it just shows a much better picture. And on the next slide, there is another example of improvement. So these 2 photos show a horse before and 3 months after changing into a flexible saddle. You see a difference in the musculature, posture and balance. So by removing the restriction of a rigid tree, the horse can feel more confident to push more from behind, freeing up the forehand and developing the thoracic sling apparatus better. So it's really nice pictures to show the difference that just changing a saddle can make in some instances. Another method that we've used routinely is pressure mapping. Sometimes we'd be out daily with the system to test the saddles under different conditions, comparing different materials, different designs, making sure that we truly understood what's happening underneath the saddle, so between the horse's back and the saddle itself, just so we can be really clear and really sure of best methods, best designs. So that was a really interesting period, and we've continued using the pressure mapping since then. On the next slide, you can see an example of a recording from a smart saddle pressure testing. So the fully flexible smart saddle is designed to move with the horse's back and shoulder movement, helping eliminate friction, torque and peak pressure points. Measurement of the forces exerted by the saddle onto the horse's back whilst being ridden show an even, regular pattern. So pressure sensor mapping testing results for smart saddles provide scientific evidence that peak and average pressures are reduced by the flexible design, and the smart saddle demonstrates improved symmetry when compared to other mix of saddles. So we did a hell of a lot of pressure mapping testing as part of in-house tests. And yeah, it can be really useful to, particularly for comparisons, just see what's happening. So are you moving poorly because you're in pain, or are you in pain because you're moving poorly? Sometimes it can be difficult to determine what the root of the problem is. A flexible saddle can be used diagnostically to help establish if poor saddle fit is the issue or if there's an underlying pain or pathology. Similarly, some horses can show to move very differently when tried in a fully flexible saddle, even if there were no specific issues showing in their previous saddle. It's often described as like taking the handbrake off, where riders can be surprised by the difference simply trying a flexible saddle can make. And there's some more examples of horses when changing between saddles. So you can see here the horse has gone from being tense and evasive on the left to relaxed and willing on the right, and that's the only change made there has been the saddle. And there's a couple of videos coming up. So this is the difference changing saddle has made to this particular horse just in a matter, I think it's 3.5 weeks. You see the horse is now much more straighter, more relaxed, more willing. And there's another video. So you can see here that the horse starts off with, it's just holding its top line a bit stiffly, a bit reluctant to go forwards. And then once the saddle's changed, you can see he relaxes, stretches the neck forwards and moves with a longer, more swinging step. Again, the canter looks stilted, lacks suspension, and the horse is croup high. And then once changes saddle and starts to work in more of a collected canter, the horse is able to engage and raise the forehand. So at Smart Saddles, we're actually trying to move away from the term treeless because there's quite a lot of negative connotations, and as showed earlier, there's quite a range in designs. So from just a basic pony pad to inclusively designed, scientifically informed saddles. There's a wide range of treeless saddle myths, so I'll just run through a few of them. So without a tree, it's not possible for the saddle to evenly distribute the weight of the rider. Well, firstly, it's a myth that a tree evenly distributes weight. There's a cyclical nature to weight distribution throughout the stride cycle as the horse and rider move together. We see that overall reduced pressures and peak pressures can be observed with fully flexible saddles. Treeless saddles create peak stirrup bar pressure. A well-designed, fully flexible saddle does not create peak stirrup bar pressures. It's important to consider the saddle design and materials used. The stirrup hanger assembly of a smart saddle is set either side of the body of the saddle, so there's no strap going over the top of the saddle. It's also spread over a wide area of the saddle to avoid focal points. So when we were doing all our pressure testing, not once have we had peak stirrup bar pressures at all, even playing around with not fitting the saddle to the level that we know is optimal. It still just doesn't happen. Obviously every design is different. We can confidently say that about the smart saddle range. Treeless saddles are not stable, so fully flexible saddles are very stable. The ability to accommodate and effectively absorb the horse's movement allows the saddle to remain stable and in synchrony with horse and rider. You can't jump in this treeless saddle. Although some brands and designs may not be suitable for jumping, smart saddles are FEI approved for all disciplines and are regularly used by riders at all levels. And we'll see some examples of that later. Treeless saddles have to be used with a specialist pad. No saddle is a one-size-fits-all, so it's important to recognise that pads can be used to correct fit where necessary. However, it's not essential to use specialist pads with smart saddle if the horse's back adequately supports the panels without anything, and if the horse carries the rider in correct balance. So there's no issue using shims or pads if the saddle is designed to be used with them and if that's what's required in order to achieve the best fit. But treeless saddles don't necessarily have to be used with one in order to perform and function properly. Treeless saddles work for a short period of time, but are not a long-term solution. A fully flexible saddle will flex to fit your horse for as long as you need it to, and it's not limited to being a short-term solution or band-aid. As we all know, horses are changing shape all the time, so as with any saddle, it's important to adjust the fit as your horse changes shape. Failure to do so can create issues with any saddle. So yeah, it's just a case of keeping on top of saddle fit, just as you would with any saddle. And then we have some nice examples of horses performing high level jumping in a fully flexible smart saddle. With the flexible base panels, they allow the horse freedom to bascule, and there's no tree points to worry about on landing. So there's many different types of treeless saddle on the market. However, the Smart Saddle range is the first saddle design to ever be awarded a prestigious Queen's Award for Enterprise in the Innovation section in 2021. These market-leading designs have evolved to offer an alternative solution for horses and riders at all levels in all disciplines. And we'll take a look through a gallery of the saddles in action to get an idea of what types of saddles you can get. So our jump saddles have got a very contemporary style. They've got an external knee block for super close contact, more of that feel for precise riding and rider support. Come in different base panels, different sizes. So there really is something to suit every horse and rider. And they give all the stability and feel you need over a fence. Also have a wide range of dressage saddles to suit every shaped dressage horse, from big moving warm bloods to cobs and everything in between. Again, they've got an external knee block for close contact and refined communication. And that knee block can be positioned to suit each individual rider. So you can really get your leg exactly where you need to be on that particular horse. The freedom of movement that a fully flexible saddle allows makes them perfect for dressage. And here's a range of horses performing in their smart saddles. And smart saddles are not only enjoyed by riders, but also by trainers. Tim Downs, who's a fellow of the BHS, has ridden in and been an ambassador for smart saddles for a great number of years now. And he'll literally take saddles out with him when he flies around the world training, because he knows that he can, if he's come up against a client that he knows the saddle is not fitting and that's restricting and limiting their improvement and performance, he can pop a flexible saddle on, eliminate the saddle as an issue, and then help the rider progress. So that works really well for him. And here we have a video of one of our native GP saddles. So the native range was designed to accommodate wider, flatter backed horses and ponies, where you don't need or don't want such great lift up over the back. The more you lift something off the back, the more you run the risk of creating an unstable platform. So these saddles are also really popular with adults on native ponies, as you can have a bigger seat on a shorter panel. The low profile base itself affords incredible stability on those round backed horses and ponies with large shoulders who may otherwise struggle to find a saddle to stay stable. And these are really popular saddle, obviously the GP, multidiscipline, suitable for a bit of everything really. And then we have lots of people enjoying eventing in their saddles, again from all levels, from grassroots up to advanced. And beyond that, we love seeing riders out enjoying their smart saddles in a wide range of disciplines, some less conventional than others. They come in a wide range of sizes to even suit the smallest jockeys and their ponies. And here you can see a lot of young riders having a lot of fun in their smart saddles on, yeah, a very wide range of very cute ponies. If you'd like to see smart saddles in the flesh, we'll be at Your Horse Live this year with some special offers on, and we'll be in the marquee. So if you wanted to speak to any of our team, we offer test rides throughout the UK, and the saddles are available to buy worldwide too. We have comprehensive try before you buy rental service and 3 different 0% payment plans, just helping to spread the cost of a new saddle. And if anyone wants to find out more, there's contact details on the final slide. And then just last thing to say is we're proud to support Horse Tribe and pleased to offer special discounts on smart saddles for Horse Tribe Gold members. So sign up to find out more. So thank you for your attention. I hope that you've all found something interesting to take away from the presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte. That's fantastic. And yeah, we're also very proud to that that Smart Saddles are sponsoring Horse Tribe. So thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
We found our journey. Vera and I have both had a journey into discovering flexible saddles over the last year or so. I think
Yeah.
a year or so, and so thought it would be something that everybody would want to share. So guys, if you've got some questions, and I'm sure you have, because like they're not traditional, so there must be some questions out there, then please type away in the Q&A and we'll put those questions to Charlotte, and I'm sure she can help shed some extra light. Although you've covered so many things already, we might not have many. But I've got a question, just to start. The girth straps are, it's not close, it's not one single panelled, but the girth straps are long. What's the reason for that?
So as in having dressage style girth straps?
Yeah.
Yes, so the idea is to keep a constant band around the horse's sides. So if you have short girth straps, you're bringing the girthing arrangement up onto the body leather of the saddle. So it can just create a bit of instability. So you get better performance by bringing the girth straps down past the body leather of the saddle, and then by bringing the girth up to meet the bottom of the saddle flap. So you are literally creating that one constant loop.
Okay, that makes lots of sense. Thank you.
And of course, a lot of us will compare to many years' experience of a very traditional saddle, as you've been talking about. And a tree saddle, it kind of, the concept feels like it has a very robust frame to it that will last. And I mean, I had a saddle that was probably about 20 years old at one point, and still looked pretty much the same. What is the flexible saddle made of, and does it have a shorter lifespan, for example? You know, how would you debunk that myth?
Okay, so no, I mean, it's all down to how you look after and care for the saddle. So there's no reason that they'd last less time than a conventional saddle. They, as you see, the way that they engage and the forces that they go through can be slightly different to a conventional saddle, so they may wear slightly differently. But no, I mean, we've been making the earlier designs obviously since 2006, even earlier, and they're still going strong, and they were made of much less material in terms of the different layering system. So the Smart saddles now, since 2010, there's much more to them. So they're more robust in that sense, and yeah, we don't get saddles in for routine maintenance, other than perhaps, you know, girth straps, which, as with any saddle, we recommend replacing regularly, or if they've been damaged somehow. But yeah, the longevity, they made it, the shelf life on the materials is really good.
Fantastic. So another question. You've talked about some of the myths, but why are traditional saddlers so anti-flexible saddles? Or so it seems.
Yeah, I think there is a shift. We're getting a lot more traditional saddlers on board, and, you know, like I say, everyone's trying to do their best for the horse, including saddlers. And sometimes, you know, you've got to have the product to be able to do your best, and sometimes, you know, you can't. Some of these cobs and native ponies, they're just not saddle shaped. So I think yeah, a lot of saddlers are coming around to the idea of adding treeless saddles to the repertoire. Obviously there's a lot more testing gone on now. You know, treed saddles have been used for such a long period of time. We kind of know how they perform and know what to expect, and now we can say the same for some flexible saddles.
Yeah, the pressure testing is really interesting, because that was, I've seen a few different webinars or talks or whatever saying, pinpointing the pressure being the key thing that flexible saddles don't equalize, yet though that demonstration that you showed was really equal, wasn't it? And no pressure points.
Yeah, and the thing is, it is cyclical. So, you know, the horse is moving, the rider's moving. It's never going to be exactly the same either side, especially for horses bending, things like that. But you're looking for generally reduced overall pressures and a nice consistent cyclical pattern. And also you have to take care of how the results are calibrated as well, because you can make bad readings look good and vice versa. So it's important to have a set protocol, a set calibration, so that you know you're comparing like with like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think it's probably worth re-emphasising that you offer the trial, don't you? So anyone who's unsure, and that's something that Heidi and I both did, because we wanted to check, you know, was this the right decision for our horses? And you didn't mention it at the time, but there were 2 pictures of my horse, Johnny. And you spoke about really big scapulars, really big shoulder blades, and that was the key issue that I had. His shoulders were simply moving back. Anything I put on that was fixed was just getting shifted back. So this is the right saddle for him, and it's allowed him to develop top line. So yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? How it's sorry, I've talked a bit there, but it's about the trial was the point.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially because, as most people do come from a traditional conventional trade background, it's hard to make a decision to jump ship and go to completely different concepts straight away. So I think it's hard to know in just one session if it's the right saddle for you. And also it's different conditions, isn't it? Like riding for half an hour, 40 minutes in front of someone you don't know in an arena environment is very different if you like to take your horse out hacking, or if you want to go to a competition and see if you've got some, you know, results that you can actually measure. So yeah, we encourage that for everyone, you know, wherever possible, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you touched on the discount for gold members. So if you're a gold member, you get up to £100 worth of smart saddle essentials with any smart saddle purchase. So that could include the number, couldn't it, and some pads.
Yes, yeah. So as I say, not every horse requires pads, but pretty much everyone will ride with a saddle cloth. So if you were to come to us and try a saddle as a Horse Tribe Gold member, then you take advantage of £100 worth of freebies, basically.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And one of the lovely things about the saddle pads are that they're velcroed so that they can't come down on your horse's back, which is just such a simple but brilliant idea.
Yes.
So yeah, so you can never put your saddle on and pushed into their spine, which is brilliant.
We've got a question from Eve, actually, which is really apposite, actually. I love that word. Because on Monday, Heidi and I are having our saddles checked. So Eve says, how often should a smart saddle fit be checked? Is it similar to the minimum 6 months recommendation for treat saddles?
It varies, really. Obviously, we do promote regular refits. It depends a little bit on the horse and what it's doing. For instance, if you've got a horse that's in a rehab situation and you know that back's going to be changing shape quite quickly, then you're probably looking around the 3 months mark. There are some horses that are pretty established. They're kept, you know, maybe not doing that much work, but it's routine work. And so they may go 6 to 12 months before their first refit. The other good thing about the saddles is, although we do recommend hands-on fitting wherever possible, if you do have a bit of a query in the interim, there's lots we can do remotely because of the way the saddles work and because they flex to accommodate the shims and things like that. There's little things that you can try and report back on, so you're not necessarily having to pay to get a fitter out all the time. So there's lots of options with them, and especially if you live in an area where, you know, you're quite remote or there's not lots of saddle fitters around, it can be a really good option because you can still get the support and be working with a saddle that gives you lots of options, really.
Yeah, because I got a new horse, and the saddle fitter's coming tomorrow, but obviously I had some time waiting for her to come, so sent her some videos and she just checked those videos, make sure the balance looked decent, gave a couple of tips, and yeah, so it felt good, which is great. Yeah, and the fact that you can move the saddle from one horse to another is amazing.
Yeah, really good. Actually,
amazing.
The pictures of the steel grey were my horse, and you could see I had Emily back after 3 months because he just built so much top line. He changed so significantly in 3 months that I needed to get her back, and this time around it's 6 months, so it's got kind of more normal, if you like. Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. I think that's it in terms of questions. I'm just going to quickly share what we've got coming up in the next few weeks, and then I think we'll just recheck your contact details, Charlotte. So over the next month or so, we've got, you need to say this one, Thea, because I can't pronounce her name very well.
I know, I like a bit of French. It's Well, she's got absolutely incredible English. Louise Venez. There you go.
Very good, brilliant. Who's an equine osteopath, and she's going to be coming and talking about how to understanding and preventing back pain in your horse. So there's themes, isn't there, that run through everything. Then we've got fabulous Gillian Higgins from Horses Inside Out coming to answer all questions about physiology live. So any questions you have, come and ask Gillian and she'll be delighted to answer them. Trisha Nassau-Williams is coming on the 17th of November. She's talking about bitting, which I think will be really popular. So another art that has moved on so much over the years, I think. And then finally, we've got Catherine Baker on the 24th of November talking about bridle fitting. That's not a picture of Catherine, that's a picture of me putting a bridle on my horse because I couldn't find one of Catherine just yet. So that's what we've got coming up over the next few weeks. And just to put Charlotte's contact details, so if people want to get in touch, there's a phone number for Smart Saddles. You're on Facebook, Insta and so on as well, aren't you? So yeah, just remains to say a huge thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Charlotte. It was fascinating.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
absolutely. No, it's been brilliant. And yeah, really enjoyed it. And can't wait to carry on working with Smart Saddles over the years. So thank you, and thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Yeah.
See you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.